decision to keep his mouth shut. And this sinful silence brings a new theological dimension to the text because, watch this, God has successfully been removed from the narrative. The snake is talking. Eve is talking. The serpent is talking and humanity is talking, but God is not in the conversation. Adam is silent, and as a result, the snake is talking about God to Eve, and Eve is talking about God to the serpent, but nobody's talking to God or with God or for God. And whenever we leave God out of the equation, we wind up embracing snake theology. Oh my God. And that's what's happening in the world today. The serpent, who represents Satan, is talking. Eve, who represents the world with a cloudy understanding of God, is talking. But Adam, who represents the church, Adam, who heard directly from God, is silent. And whenever the church is silent, the world operates on snake theology. Well, what is snake theology? Snake theology is the objectification of God, where we place God on the outside, and God becomes a subject of our conversation. When you objectify God, you can then place your own opinions about God in the mix. Eve and the snake are having a dialogue in which God is objectified. And when God is objectified, we remove ourselves from the creative power and the divine power of God. In snake theology, everybody say snake theology. In snake theology, we think we are in control because our own rationalism comes into play, and we're not dealing with the metaphysical reality that is connected unto God. Snake theology leads to self-centered ideology. It's when we talk about God, but not when we talk to God. And I'm sorry to tell you this, my sisters and brothers, there's a lot of snake theology going on in our churches. We stand up and talk about God, but we don't spend enough time talking to God. Yeah. You see, if we were talking to God, we wouldn't be confused about our identity. Oh, Lord. If we were talking to God, we would see his miracle working power manifested in our midst. We wouldn't come to church one way and leave the same way that we came. If we were talking to God, sexual misconduct would not be named among our clergy. Help me, somebody. If we were talking to God, we would spend time building one another up instead of tearing our sisters and brothers down. If we were talking to God, we wouldn't have so much internal strife among us. Look at somebody and tell them you ought to talk to God. Something is wrong here. We've got to begin to talk to God. You see, my sisters and brothers, snake theology has ramifications in the ecclesiastical realm, because even in that realm, we've been prostituted and we have pimped the church. Oh, God, I hope y'all don't leave here on me. Preachers are even pimping the gospel. Watch this, because prosperity theology is nothing but snake theology in drag. Yeah. For prosperity theology removes the cross as a central symbol in the Christian tradition. The cross is a painful metaphor, and prosperity theology does not like to deal with the painful realities of life. The cross is sorrow-filled. It represents a horrific event. Prosperity theology does not like to deal with Calvary, because Calvary deals with your pain. Calvary is not a feel-good moment. And prosperity theology takes the perspective of, what have you done for me lately, God? And Calvary gets in the way of prosperity, because Calvary tells us if we serve the Lord, we are going to have to deal with some pain. We are going to have to deal with some heartaches. We are going to have to deal with some hard times, because foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man have no place to lay his head. Snake theology has seduced the church. We need to understand that we've got to preach about Jesus. We've got to preach about the pain and the power of Christ. We can't get so caught up in the shout, because after the shout, we got to serve. After the shout, we got to go back home to those raggedy neighborhoods and deal with the dropout rate and deal with the boys on the corner and deal with those young girls having babies. We've got to deal with the pain of life. We can't get caught up in just the celebration without the juxtaposition of liberation. There's got to be a connection. When we have a self-centered service, when we serve humanity from a superficial perspective, snake theology comes into being.